This is a mini video on topic 3, which is an extension of the lecture that was held on the 2nd of December. And this topic is focused on critical constructionism and universal concepts as found in chapter 2 of your text by Rian Satterwhite. So Satterwhite looks at leadership as an intersection between systems, the biosphere and justice, and we'll unpack these concepts. So that this chapter is foundational to the orientation of this subject. The key concepts explored are: the biosphere is a predominant and pervasive context of leadership theory and practice, and critical and constructionist perspectives are important tools in exploring what leadership does and can look like when this biosphere is acknowledged, an acknowledged context of leadership practice. So leadership is an evolving concept, and Satterwhite challenges the personal development approach, talking about the myth, saying we must adapt ourselves and our behaviour repeatedly, navigate new waters, new priorities, new values and new relationships with each new leadership challenge. Adaptive leadership is pervasive. However, the fractured landscape of the field itself is reflective of this thinking, and we have all these different orientations of leadership: business leadership, not-for-profit, etc. All these different discourses, all these different not discourses but disciplines and theories of leadership and areas that people work in. So this is a really reductionist approach, and what we're looking at is to actually connect the system as a whole. This quote is really insightful. Stop me if you've heard this before. Bringing our authentic selves to each context is the only way to ensure any consistency and translatable lessons from experience to experience. And as Satterwhite said, this is about personal development only. This is an individual and could be considered a narcissistic approach by some. Who are our authentic selves? When am I being authentic and when am I being inauthentic? My sense is that most of us are here for the same reason, and most of us seek to be authentic in most situations. Showing up and knowing who you are so important for leadership practice. And why Satterwhite is challenging this personal development approach is that we are not alone. There is no such thing as a discrete otherness. We are all connected, fundamentally, conveying a shared responsibility. So think about this. Let's sit with this for a minute, and what's coming up for you? What are you railing against? What are you reacting to in these theories and in these orientations? I know it's great to write about adaptive leadership and authentic leadership, but this is very much about just our person. What about collective leadership? What about leadership with others? So systems thinking and critical theory are very much a part of this as well. So we need to be able to understand the ecosystem, the natural and social parts of that, versus our continued willful blindness. And I talk about all of us being willfully blind. And a lot of this is because we are scared to confront facts and fears. However, when we do this, we achieve real power and unleash our capacity for change. Stephen Brookfield, for those of you who have an education background or studying education, he is particularly insightful when it comes to critical theory. He speaks of 7 learning tasks for educators and for leaders to create a good society: challenging ideology, contesting hegemony, unmasking power, overcoming alienation, learning liberation, reclaiming reason, and learning democracy. This is at the heart of critical theory. Given leadership is a socially constructed phenomenon, society naturally plays an enormous role in how it is framed. So without intervention and the application of critical perspectives, leadership theory inherently reflects the story that is most often told And what is that story of the heroic, inspirational, transformational leader? We have the power and agency to disrupt this, but doing so requires critical learning. We'll go on to the notions of critical constructionism and universal context, and we'll unpack them. So critical constructionism combines critical theory and constructionism. So a socially constructed approach, or a constructionist approach, believes that leadership is socially constructed over time through interaction with others, not something individually possessed, the property of the group, community, organisation. And critical theory deepens this, the implications of social construction of reality that explores constructionism above explores. So it deepens the inquiry by asking critical questions, challenging assumptions, norms and biases and systems. So there's tensions between the two and paradox, because constructionism is looking at the present, defining the present by looking at the lived experience, looking at the past. Critical theory is looking at the present but asking questions about the present, so we will have liberation in the future, so we will work together for the good of society for the future. Critical constructionism values lived experience and local context shaped by universal context, and deconstructing the story most often told about leadership, that of heroic individuals generating novel visions independently of their contexts and communities, is important. We must better nurture the ability to unearth, question, critique, and ultimately reshape fundamental assumptions. So the universal concepts firstly are the biosphere, and the biological and moral arguments for considering the biosphere in our leadership practice is we are surrounded by, embedded in, made from and reliant upon natural systems of both organic and inorganic processes. And if you know anything about cosmology or the universe story or the Big Bang, we all come from stardust. We all are made of the same material. We have a shared responsibility for future generations, not just for humans, but for all species. Our interconnectedness is dynamic and it's changeable. Our willful blindness, we are all responsible for this, ignoring the true costs and unsustainable nature of our decisions, and our consumption habits perpetuate because of our willful blindness. The practical arguments for considering the biosphere: leadership skills required for sustainability closely mirror the skills to address other major challenges in the 21st century. So we're not just looking at sustainable leadership or sustainability leadership, we're looking at leadership that's going to address all of our major challenges. Creates higher functioning organisations which are ethical and socially responsible, contributing to a good society. And sustainability crosses over those 4 E's of environment, equity, education and economy, not just the environment. So I want you to individually reflect on, how do I consider the biosphere or nature in my own leadership practice? Systems. Systems thinking is the ability to understand these interconnections in such a way as to achieve a desired purpose. Lots of people have written on systems thinking. One of the scholars that really has written a lot about that is Peter Senge. Implications for leadership. The relationship between problems and their causes is indirect and not always obvious. We unwillingly create many of our own problems, but have the ability to address them through our own behaviour. And as Otto Scharmer says, why do we continue to create the same problems that we've always created using the same leadership? Most quick fixes generate unintended consequences, ultimately distancing us from our real goals. And in order to optimise the whole, we must improve the relationships among the parts. That's that social constructionism. Only a few key coordinated changes sustained over time will produce large systems change. The future can't be predicted, but it can be envisaged and brought lovingly into being. A great quote. Again, individually reflect on how systems thinking informs your leadership practice. And the last universal context is justice. To situate ethical To situate leadership within an ethical and emancipatory framework, emancipation meaning justice, equality, ethics, a sustainable environment, liberation and autonomy. And Simon Weston, that's his work. The purpose of leadership is the enactment of justice and sustainability, think about that, while uncovering and reshaping systems of power that hinder these goals. This is the central purpose of leadership. Ospina's model of social change is particularly insightful on defining social justice, a call for fairness and equality of opportunity for all human beings. It encompasses particular values of inclusion, social solidarity, transparency and accountability, democracy and equity. Justice beyond the human realm to include the natural realm. So what new insights, questions, reactions are coming up for you? Jot these down. Please write what you're reacting to, and how do these inform your own leadership thinking. And I've put optional sharing there, and you can do this yourself, blogging yourself in your own journals. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions about assessment or any of these things, please post to the subject notice board or email me. You can also try phoning me. If I don't answer, I will get back to you. Always email me first if you want to set up a time and you want to have a chat with me. Okay? Thank you for listening.